Hello and welcome to our demonstration of Primavera P6 Visualizer version 18. A little bit about us before we start. Dividend Training is an Oracle Primavera EPPM specialist gold partner, particularly within construction, engineering, rail, mining and defence industries, but across all. And we provide full lifecycle project controls and delivery, everything from scoping, implementing to training the end users. A little bit about me. I've been working in project controls for over 20 years now. I've worked across most industries, but primarily defence and construction, and I specialise in EPPM and Prime. We're going to talk through what Visualizer is, the customisable Gantt charts, timescale logic diagrams, and schedule comparison. So what is Visualizer? You may have seen it on the Start menu. You get it for free when you install P6 Professional. And it's a tool that comes with EPPM as well. It's a reporting tool that you can use to create customizable Gantt charts and timescaled logic diagrams. Users can also perform schedule comparisons in Visualizer, and that's a replacement for Claim Digger that you may have seen on the Tools menu previously. Any security profile that you have assigned in P6 is respected in Visualizer, so if you don't have access to a project in P6, you won't have access to view that project in Visualizer. So here's the Gantt charts. Similar functionality to P6 Gantt charts, but with more flexibility on how the data is presented, including more fields on a single activity row. In this example, we have the baseline information and current information stacked into rows with resources. We've got our resources here, our start and finish information alongside the baseline 1, and we've got the activity name and variance. So on this one row, we can see information for the one activity. Visualizer provides a simple interface for high level of Gantt customization, previously not possible within P6. We're going to walk through that in a moment. When customizing the Gantt chart, it's best to think of the activity table as a grid. We'll have a look at that in the tool, obviously. But we can see here all of our different options that we want to appear on our Gantt chart in Visualizer is set out in this grid format here. So the activity name appears in column 1, row 1. Timescale logic diagrams present a graphic depiction of activities and the overall logic of a project according to time. The timescale of each diagram spans a user-defined range of dates, and TSLDs allow more than one activity per row, which condenses the entire project plan and chain of activities that drive the project schedule. So here's a look at one here. They can include data otherwise not available to print in graphical format. This example here is one that we get asked about an awful lot. An activity shown on the diagram with its associated steps and their progress, so not available to do on the standard Gantt chart in P6. Again, very easy to customize, and we'll walk through it with you. Many features that Primavera P6 users have been calling for are now available, such as creating zoom areas, enabling users to zoom in on a certain time frame for greater detail. So in this example, from the 1st to the end of September 2011, it zooms in from the week format into days. The last bit, schedule comparison, enables the user to compare schedules with set criteria. If baselines are present, Visualizer will make those enabled to compare as per the example. So the Hightown corporate project that we have here, we've selected baseline from the drop-down list, and we can see what baselines are available. So we're going to run a comparison of the Hightown corporate park project against one of its baselines. In this example, only the WBS activity, addition, deletion and constraints will be looked at for change, and you just very simply tick the ones you do want to run a comparison against. A report is produced showing the differences between the two, and our example extract here shows that one activity has been added, highlighted with the red square, and no changes have been made to constraints, deleted activities, added and deleted WBS. So that's 3 bits we'll have a look at within the tool. Okay, so the Visualizer login screen, very similar to P6. We get the ability to choose a database from the drop-down list if you've got a few of those. I'm just going to log into our demonstration data here. So this is the screen you see when you log in for the first time. For new users, it can be a little bit disconcerting, but it's really quite straightforward. You get the ability to add in a timescale logic diagram, Gantt chart, or schedule comparison. And later on we'll have a look at how you can manage the layouts that you've got within here as well. First of all though, we'll have a look at adding a timescale logic diagram. First thing, you get a link back through to the enterprise project structure, and we've got a project already set up that we'll use for our demonstration, Baytown Offline Maintenance Project. And you just select it by clicking on it, dropping it across to selected projects and clicking the next button. We've got three methods of creating a timescale logic diagram. We can create a completely new one, we can create a new from an existing diagram, or we can open from the existing view. To actually see what we already have, you have to select create new from existing or open from existing, and we can see there we've got three global layouts available. You've got the ability to create global layouts, project layouts and user defined layouts, much like you do in P6, and all of the access rights to do this is controlled within P6 administration functionality. We're going to create one from new though. Give it a meaningful name and click on the draw button. So this is what we get to start off with. Obviously there's not a great deal of information on here, but we're going to go in and customize what we can see. So to do that, we click the options button. There's a number of these tabs across the top here, much like what we get in P6 with layouts. We're going to walk through each of those. They're very similar in Gantt charts as well. So first of all, the start and finish of the timescale logic diagram that you want to see on screen. I'm going to select the project start date, and I'm going to say let's see that from 7 days before the start to 7 days after. Okay, for users of P6 they'll recognise that that's quite often something you do on a Gantt chart, so that parts of the Gantt chart are not cut off behind your activity table. Next up on the background here, I'm going to change this to show month and weeks rather than year, because it's only a short project this one, as you can see from up here. I'll uncheck that one. I'll add the sight lines on there as well. What we'll do next is add in a zoom area. And as we mentioned at the beginning, this enables you to zoom into a specific area of the Gantt chart that you can determine. I'm going to say from the 9th of August until the 11th of August. And I'm zooming in 700% because we're looking at days. You've got a choice of day name or day number. I'll go for the day name. Once again, you've got things like changing the background colour for the zoom area on the timescale, and you've got the ability to change the fonts and sizes, etc. as well. I'm going to leave it as is for the moment. Next up, bars and labels. Let's take a look at that. We've got a series of available bars to us on the left hand side here. We're going to add our own one in a moment. You get a preview of what it will look like down here, and you get to set the properties and labels for that bar as well. We'll go through that now. We're going to add a float bar in. So first of all, you create that. I'm going to put a label on it. So the labels, you can put lots of labels on bars in here. I'm going to put it on the right hand side, and I'm going to add in the float. Now by adding in a label, you can also use the search item and search box there, and I'm going to add total float in like so. A couple of other things you can do here. You can change the properties, change the number of lines, maximum label width. I'm just going to change the size and colour of my total float. Okay, and back to the bars view. Okay, let's spin through these. Firstly, the properties. Obviously we'll need to change the bar type. We want to show it as a float bar. Okay, where do you want to have it? The arrangement, where it appears within the row. You've got different bits of information in here as well. I find that you have to minimize these to be able to see them all. What kind of color do we want? We want to change it to solid. We want it as a dark orange. You can change the shapes, border, how you deal with necking. You can also run filters against it as well. So currently, we're going to have it showing all activities. Lastly, color by code. Something that's available in Visualizer, which is quite a nice little feature, is the ability to color bars by the activity code value they have assigned. So if I was to choose status, all my different status values come through, and I can set different colors for each of those as well if I want to. Obviously that's quite a high level of customization. I'm just going to untick that for the moment. Next up, we'll have a look at the lines. Got a couple of good options here. We can show the relationship lines on the Gantt chart if we wish. I'm going to tick that box. And you can customize the different types of lines. So driving, critical, non-critical, etc. You can change to different colors if you wish. So I'm going to show the critical path as a slightly harder line. And non-driving I'm going to show as a light grey. Let's go to connections. Quite a good one here. You can show connection details for different, for all your activities. One here is that you can show lag on relationships and only show it when it's not equal to 0. So that's quite nice. You can show relationship types as well if you wish, and show project IDs as well. Date to date is traditionally shown as a blue line, but you can change that if you wish, or you can hide it. And the activity group, you can put borders around activity groupings as well, setting colours and styles for that. Let's jump across to group and sort. Group and sort is standard within TSLD, so if I want to select the WBS, as lots of people do, I can do. Sorting's fairly standard as well. If you want to sort in a particular order, you can do just by clicking the add button and sorting within your WBS. But I'm just going to delete that and go across to filters. So if I wanted to create a filter just to show summary activities, I could type in activity type into here, and activity type equals WBS summary, if that's what I wanted to see. I'm just going to remove that for the moment. Lastly, the page setup. This is where you can change the paper size. I'm going to change it to A3, landscape, number of horizontal sheets, I only want the one. In title block, this tab here, this is where you can change the information that appears in the header and footer. So it might be that I don't want to see this bit of information down here. I'm going to show the header on the first page, and I can click in here to delete that bit of text and add a different variable in. Got the current date on the left hand side. Maybe I want to include the date. Very simple. So now that we've made all those changes, let's go back and have a look at our timescale logic diagram now by clicking the Save and Draw button. And this looks a lot more sensible, I'm sure you'll agree. We've got the activity name here on the left hand side with the activity ID, the amount of float that an activity has got, and I've got my zoom area here on these 3 days. Gives us the relationship types going from one activity to the other, and our WBS is grouped at the top as you'd expect. So there's quite a bit that you can do with timescale logic diagrams. We'll have a look at the print preview now by selecting print preview from the drop down list. And here we go. Got a date of the project, we've got the current date on the left hand side, and all of that information is coming through. Our critical activity line here, critical relationships, being shown in our much thicker red, so it's easy to see. Okay, let's close that down now and have a look at the Gantt charts. So that takes us back to the beginning, and we're going to go into the Gantt chart screen this time. So add a Gantt chart, same as before, you select your project, add it into the selected projects and click next. Again, we can create a new one, create new from existing or open from existing. And we've got the option here of selecting one of the global layouts to start with. This time we're going to create one from new and select the baseline versus current. I'll click the draw to start off with to see what we've got here. Okay, so here we have our activity name, start, finish, all our resources, any variance against baseline number 1, and we have a simple Gantt chart that looks like this. We'll go into the options now to see how we can customize it. Okay, so here's the grid that we were talking about a little bit earlier on. Got the activity name in column 1 and row 1, variance against baseline number 1 in row 2. Okay, so let's double click into one of these fields and see what we can see. I'd like to see the variance against the actual baseline rather than the user baseline. So if I type in variance and select BL project finish date. I can double click in here to change the name. And if I wanted to change the position of it, I could do. I'll go ahead and change these now as well. Okay, I've changed all those to the project baseline. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this to row 1. What will happen when we draw the chart out is you'll see that the text is merged over the top of each other. So if I just click save and draw here, and I can see that in column 4 they are both in row 1, so the text is a little bit harder to read. Obviously that's a mistake, so we're going to go back and change that. So it's quite a common thing to accidentally do by putting information onto the same square within the grid. So I'll just change that back now, save and draw, and we'll see that information is now split out properly. So just be aware of that. Okay, we've got the activity table on the left hand side, or the grid as it's known in Visualizer. You can move it across to the right hand side if you wish. So that's something you can't do in P6, worth knowing about. You can decide just to have the Gantt chart or the grid by itself as well. And the ability to wrap the text is over here with the changes to font as well. Let's go to Timescale next. Timescale as before, project start, project finish. We've got the Gantt chart set up for year and quarter on the timescale, so I'm going to change that to month and week. Add the sight lines in, and I'm just going to leave it as is for the time being. If we wanted to create a zoom area, we could by adding one in, much like before, but we've seen that once already, so I'll just remove that and go to bars and labels. Okay, at the moment we've got the primary baseline shown. If I have a look at the properties on here, I can see that bar type is the primary baseline. I'm going to change that to the project baseline, and I'm going to change the way that is shown on screen to have solid color of a, let's say we're going to go for a green this time. Okay, all the same as before, shapes, borders, necking and filters. I'm going to show the relationship lines on my Gantt chart. I want to see all criticals as red. We'll put it as a dotted line this time, maybe a dash line. Maybe you only want to see driving relationships. Let's select that. Same with connections. You can show the lag. Only show the lag when it's not equal to 0, change colours and so on. I'll take that off for now. And I'm going to change the date-to-date thickness so it's a lot thicker on the screen. Group and sort works in much the same way. I'll add in the work breakdown structure. It's quite a common thing to be able to see. And if you've got that, you've got the option to hide if empty as well. So much like P6 in that sense. Filters. Maybe you want to hide away or just show only certain elements of the Gantt chart. You can do that within here. I'm going to say just show me milestones by selecting that. Activity type equals start milestone or finish milestone. And the page setup again, select the paper size, select how many horizontal sheets you want. Okay, we'll save and draw that now and see what we've got. And here we go. Very simple Gantt chart. I can see my baseline information, I can see my milestones. It might be that I want to put some extra information on these as well, and I can do that within labels. So very straightforward to do. So we'll go off to the print preview, and this is what it currently looks like. Obviously this is something you can play around with a lot. Okay, we're back to the main screen again, and we're going to go into schedule comparison to run a comparison between our project and its baseline. So we'll create a new one. I've called it baseline comparison, and we'll go into options. So if I have a search for my project over here, it's 870. I'll select that on the left hand side. If I have a look for 870 here, select that. I can also say let's have a look at the baselines. And I can add that in. Project against its baseline. Okay, let's click on the General tab to see what we've got here. We can add the report in different formats. I'm just going to keep it in HTML for the time being, but you can export it out to a CSV as well. Output file there is quite easy to use. Go to the Advanced tab, and this is where you can decide which fields are compared. Unfortunately, there's not a select all or deselect all. And we're going to have a look at changes to added and deleted activities. Once you've made your options, click Save and Draw. And I can see here that there's an awful lot of activities that have been deleted from the project. I scroll down to the bottom and no changes have been made to adding activities. So it might be something I'd like to question back with our contractor to find out why all these have been removed. If I wanted to save this comparison, I could do so by clicking on Save As and what type of one that I like. So I'm going to save it as a global comparison layout and select Save. Okay, so the last little bit then, if I just go to the More button and Manage, I can see in here my different types of global layouts that I've got and user layouts as well. So I can see there's 6 different types of layouts that are global. There's 8 in here for user layouts. If I want to remove them, I can just select them and delete. If I want to move them up into global, if I've got the access rights to do so, I can do that as well. You can also export the information out. Well, thank you very much for watching our demonstration of Visualizer. If you need more information, there's some information on here on the screen. You can contact us via our website or through LinkedIn, or lastly by giving us a call as well. We'd be happy to talk you through. But other than that, that's all we have to cover on Visualizer for today. Hopefully you've been able to see that it's a very simple product to use. It's free. If you've installed P6 Professional, it will also be on there. So by all means, open it up and give it a try. I hope that's been of some use.